gentlemen, please have your seat. Next, a prayer session. The prayer will be led by Mr. Edwin.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang dan salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Sebelum memulai acara, marilah kita berdoa menurut agama dan kepercayaan kita masing-masing. Bagi yang beragama Islam, izinkanlah saya memimpinnya. A'udzubillahi minasyaitonirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ya Allah, Tuhan yang Maha Kuasa, pada hari ini kami berkumpul dalam kegiatan Pulai SERIES-17 dengan hati yang penuh syukur atas segala nikmat dan karunia-Mu. Kami memohon kepadamu agar Engkau senantiasa memberikan bimbingan dan petunjuk-Mu dalam setiap langkah yang kami ambil hari ini. Ya Allah, limpahkanlah rahmat dan berkah-Mu kepada kami, para peserta, para pembimbing, dan seluruh tim yang terlibat dalam kegiatan ini. Jadikanlah acara ini sebagai sarana untuk meningkatkan kemampuan, pengetahuan, dan keterampilan kami, sehingga kami dapat memberikan kontribusi terbaik dalam kegiatan ini. Ya Allah, bukakanlah hati dan pikiran kami untuk menerima setiap pelajaran dan pengalaman yang berharga selama kegiatan ini. Jadikanlah kami hamba-hamba-Mu yang selalu bersemangat dalam belajar dan bekerja, serta mampu menghadapi setiap tantangan dengan penuh kesabaran dan kebijaksanaan. Ya Allah, jadikanlah kegiatan ini sebagai jalan untuk mempererat tali silaturahmi di antara kami, memperkokoh kebersamaan, serta meningkat semangat kerjasama dalam mencapai tujuan bersama. Ya Allah, jauhkanlah kami dari segala rintangan dan hambatan yang dapat mengganggu kelancaran acara ini. Berilah kami kekuatan dan keikhlasan dalam menjalani setiap proses dan tanggung jawab yang kami emban. Ya Allah, ampunilah segala dosa dan kesalahan kami, baik yang disengaja maupun yang tidak disengaja. Jadikanlah usaha dan ikhtiar kami dalam kegiatan ini sebagai amal ibadah yang Engkau terima. Dengan segala kerendahan hati, kami mohon kepadamu, Ya Allah, kabulkanlah doa dan harapan kami, berkahilah acara ini dari awal hingga akhir, dan jadikanlah hasilnya bermanfaat bagi kami semua. Amin ya rabbal alamin. Allahumma inna nas'aluka salamatan fid din, wa afiatan fil jasad, wa jadatan fil ilmi, wa barakatan fil rizki, wa taubatan qoblal maut, wa rahmatan indal maut, wa mafiratan ba'dal maut. Allahumma hawin alaina fi sakaratil maut, wa najata minan nari awwalin dal hisab. Rabbana la tudzi qulubana ba'da hadaitana wa hab lana min ladunka rahmatan innaka antal wahhab. Rabbana zalamna anfusana wa illam taghfir lana wa tarhamna lanakunanna minal khasirin. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa bil akhirati hasanah wa qina azabannar. Subhana rabbika izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Furthermore, a speech by the Dean of Forestry Faculty to Dr. Insinyur Farah Dibah SUT MSI IPU. Time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang semuanya. Salam rimba. The Honorable our guest here, special guest Professor Fernand Lewis from University of California, Berkeley, United States. Kita beri applause dulu, beliau ini jauh-jauh dari Amerika Serikat ya. And also his beautiful wife, Madam Lisa. Welcome to our Forestry Faculty. Yang kami hormati Bapak dan Ibu dosen Fakultas Kehutanan Universitas Tanjung Pura, kemudian juga hadir Bapak dan Ibu dosen dari Fakultas di lingkungan Universitas Tanjung Pura. Tadi ada informasinya dari FMIPA, kemudian Fakultas Hukum, kemudian Fakultas Kedokteran ya, dan Farmasi. Mungkin ada dari fakultas lain, mohon maaf jika belum disebutkan. Kemudian yang berbahagia mahasiswa semua, jadi pada hari ini kita akan mendapat satu materi tentang bagaimana menulis artikel dalam bahasa Inggris, karena beliau akan memberikan trik-trik ya untuk menulis, dan tentu harapannya kita semua khususnya Bapak Ibu dosen nanti dapat bertanya aktif dan juga mempelajari apa yang disampaikan beliau, sehingga kita semua bisa mempublikasikan hasil penelitian kita kita dalam jurnal berbahasa Inggris dengan baik ya. Dan kami mengucapkan terima kasih kepada semua panitia yang telah menyelenggarakan kegiatan ini dengan baik, khususnya pada Ibu Profesor Dr. Yuliati Indrayani yang telah mengundang Bapak Prof. Fernand Luis ke Universitas Tanjung Pura ya. Dan ini juga menjadi satu rangkaian setelah seminar Nasional MAPEKI dan seminar International Awards yang diselenggarakan tanggal 10 dan 11 September yang lalu. Baik, dengan mengucapkan Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, kami membuka acara Pulai Series 17 pada hari ini. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang. Salam rimba.
Before we go to the next session, let us take picture first. The dean, also our speaker, and the lecturer.
Teacher.
Yep, the lecturer can join us to take a photo. Yep, please all the lecturers to join us. Also from other faculty, from forestry faculty.
Come on. All the faculty, please, please. Come. There's many. Many. Very talented. Good boy. More. Whoa. Many faculty. Many faculty. Whoa. So many. You're so young looking. Wow. This one. Oh, more.
Mohon untuk berdiam diri dulu di depan karena akan foto bersama audiens juga. Teman-teman diharapkan berdiri dari tempat duduknya agar terlihat.
Oh, a whole bunch. It's being inclusive, I get it. More? Spirit. Shaka. Oh, pleasure. Thank you.
Please still sit in your seat because I wanna ask the moderator, Professor Lily, to wait your minute. Yep. Now, Now is top of the session, our seminar today, and will be led by Professor Dr. Insinyur Yuliati Indrayani as MSE. Also, we have Sri Suatu Saada as our translator. Please to Professor Dr. Insinyur Yuliati Indrayani MSE, also Sri Suatu Saada.
What? Yay! I'm blessed. More. Wow.
To Professor Dr. Insinyur Yuliati Indrayani MSE, please, time is yours.
Thank you, Nurul. Bang Juri, bisa ditampilkan CV-nya? CV. Oke. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everybody. Let me as your moderator during this event. First of all, I would like to thank you, Professor Bernard Lewis and wife Lisa, for coming to Indonesia. Ini pertama kalinya beliau datang ke Indonesia langsung ke Pontianak. Enggak singgah-singgah dulu ke Bali, enggak. Jadi waktu saya menanyakan apakah bersedia untuk menjadi keynote speaker di event internal seminar, beliau langsung menjawab, iya, saya akan hadir dengan biaya sendiri. Appreciate-nya, applause to Professor Bernard Lewis. So I introduce all that the first time you come here, directly to Pontianak, you didn't come to the Bali first. And Professor Bernard Lewis membeli baju batik baru sengaja untuk dipakai di hari ini. I thought them that you bought a new T-shirt batik, you and Lisa, just for this event today. Professor Bernard Lewis, let me introduce first before you give the talk. So, Bernard Lewis, education PhD in entomology, California, Berkeley, Master of Science, Bachelor, all in University of California, and he has many experience. Terus ke bawah, Bang. Professor affiliation is Entomological Society of America, and so many experience you have. How many page? 24? Maybe I cannot reach all.
Too many.
Every single, yeah, too many, so yes. Professor Lewis, let me introduce the participant is a lecturer from Faculty of Forestry, and maybe from the Mathematics and Fundamental of Science. How many of you? How many of you from the Faculty of Mathematics and Fundamental of Science? Four? For lecturers. And from the law faculty?
Law.
2?
Medical.
5 persons. From the medical faculty?
Medicine.
Only one. Okay. Any else? Where are you from? Medical. Oh, medical. So 3 of you. Okay. Any else? Maybe I cannot see from here. No, the rest is the student. Okay. So maybe today Professor Bernard Lewis will give us knowledge about how to writing a scientific paper, and also how to write the proposal, right? How to write the proposal.
Absolutely.
As you know that every year our lecturer have to write the proposal, doing the research and writing the report.
Okay.
That is it. Every year we have to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So
What do I have, an hour and a half?
yes, I think. Yeah. So the Bernard Lewis,
How long?
this time for you, I give you the chance to give your talk.
So I have an hour and then 30 minutes, hour and a half?
Okay, time is yours, about 1.5 hours, please.
Good. So can I go?
Please, time is
Oh,
yours.
I go to work. Fantastic. I am so pleased and honored to be here today. I'd like to dedicate this talk to you, all of you. You represent the future. My generation tried to save the rainforest and save the air. We failed. Now it's your turn. So hopefully what I'll tell you today will help you to do that. Some of you out there, well, some of you already are scientists. Some of you at the bachelor level, you will become scientists. And I noticed there was many people from different backgrounds here. I heard medicine. Let me tell you a secret about me. I got accepted into 2 medical schools in America. I didn't go. I went to bug school instead. People ask me why. Because in my heart, I wanted to do something for insects in the environment. Oh. It's on? Okay. And we saw there's some people here from the math department. Right? Did I hear that? Math? No? Higher? Is it okay? No? You hear okay? For those of you there's faculty from the math department, mathematics, right? Okay, when I was a graduate student, we have to have outside areas of expertise. One of my outside areas was statistics. So I do know statistics, some. You know more. I was a pre-med student for a while, and during my time at Berkeley, I also had an appointment with our forest products lab. So I know something about forests and forest products. Okay. Now let's talk about the talk this is a very difficult talk for me to give, but it's a very important talk, because for faculty to get tenure and to become globally recognized, you have to write. And that normally means you're going to have to write in some of the English journals. That's the way the world is. You guys already know, particularly the faculty, you know this. You have to write scientific papers. So in today's presentation, I'm thankful that I have more than an hour, and I'll leave lots of time for questions. Since there's some people out here who probably don't know English, I imagine there's at least 1 or 2. That's all right, because I know no Indonesian, so you're a lot better than me. So I have to talk a little bit on the basic rules of English parts of speech. And you have to understand, I've been doing this work for, 35 years. I have reviewed many, many papers as an editor, as a reviewer, from scientists from all over the world, sometimes from Indonesia. So I know that it's difficult to write in a foreign language. I get that. So I'll try and explain a little bit how the parts of speech work. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because you want to know about the papers. And so the other thing I have to spend a little time on is how to put an English sentence together. So we're going to go from words and a little bit of basic grammar to sentences. And then here's the big part. In science, we write in passive voice. And for those of you who don't understand that, normally in our day-to-day life, we speak active. I go to school or I eat. In science, we don't do that. We talk in the passive voice. And I'll explain there's some subtle differences, but I notice non-native speakers to English struggle a bit with that. But I'll try and explain that to you. Then most of my time, I'm going to talk about writing an actual paper. And the paper I picked is in the Journal of Economic Ent. This was my first paper. It's my most popular paper. And I will use this as an example on the slides on the different parts of a scientific paper and the strategy and what goes into how you do it. We're going to talk about titles. We're going to talk about abstracts. We're going to talk about topic sentences. That's important. And then the last thing I'll mention is places where you can get grammar books on parts of English. Now we're lucky today you can go to AI for that. I know that. Don't just rely on AI. Don't you come up and show me some thesis title that you got from AI. I'm too smart for that. They are too. They'll know the difference. I know what you guys are thinking. No. All right. I think you guys know what disclaimers are. So before I get deep into this talk, I have to tell you I am a native English speaker. Most of you out there are not. So if And you're video recording this, and people will probably translate to help them. Okay. So sometimes I have to go kind of fast, or I use jargon. But please bear with me. I think you'll get the big picture. For those of you who haven't, I recommend you take an English grammar and writing class. Now, I assume your faculty have done that. You students, if you haven't, you have to do more than watch those Korean soap operas. That doesn't count. You can start with that, but you need to write. Also speak. When I am correcting my sentences, I write and then I speak it to see if they match up. So your ears sometimes can help you. Let me tell you a secret about languages. When we speak, it's not just our word, is it? It's our hands, we're looking, we touch. Writing, all they have is what's on the paper. It's a difficult medium, but you can master it. The last thing I'll mention, this is the first time I've given a talk like this. In American schools, we don't do it this way. They just figure you're a natural genius or something. This is a good way to begin a freshman. Learn your Indonesian, and then if you want to learn English or French or Russian or German or Mandarin, that's good too. But it's good to get those good skills early. I'm up here talking. Now, in my head, there's hundreds of papers spinning in my head. So sometimes I have to quickly, hopefully, sort through those to give you the best and shortest examples. Okay, we have to start with the basic rules of the parts of speech in English. We'll start with the sentence up above. I, Bernard, touched the big termite on the ground. That's an active sentence. I touched. You can imagine me, okay. But that's made up of different parts of speech. We have nouns. So me, termite, and ground. Persons, places, proper things are nouns. Then we have this thing called touch. That's a verb, action, right? Touch. And then we'll deal with the different tenses later. Also in there, we have nouns and pronouns. And remember, pronouns are a shortcut way to, I could say Bernard, I could say I. I could say Lisa, I could say she. There's different shortcuts. You'll learn that. The adjectives. So things like the ground and the big termite, those are adjectives. Got it? And then you'll see those prepositional phrases or definite articles. English language uses a lot of those. And normally that comes before the nouns. And those can be an adjective or they can be a definite article is what they're called. Then these prepositions, of, to, from. You'll see on, all that, all those prepositional phrases, those can be used to modify nouns, sometimes verbs. And then you have adverbs. I run quickly. Right? Get it? So that's all I'm going to say on that. If you want more detail on it, that's what used to be. We had the Webster's Dictionary. Now you go to the internet. The internet's pretty good. You can type in Google Translate, and it'll tell you what that part of speech is. And then when you go to the grammar dictionaries, there's rules. There's always rules with grammar. And humans are getting better. We have these translate. In fact, Lisa and I are looking at another one. The Japanese have this one that it's almost simultaneously where you can speak into it and it'll translate. So it could be, particularly the young students, in your lifetime, you're going to have some incredible technology where language won't be the barrier like it used to be. So I'll give you an example. I started as a professor in 1989 or 88, I forget. We didn't have the internet. So how did I talk to people in other countries? I wrote a letter. How long did you think that take? Months. I couldn't even call them on the phone. Someone on this side of the world, they call me, my secretary say, John French in Australia called yesterday and said call tomorrow. What does that mean? I'm already in tomorrow. So those are the things, but now the internet makes it instant. In fact, I get internet emails every day now, and the world never sleeps. Okay. Now, how do we actually put sentences together? You have to have a subject. Why else talk about something? Or write, you have to have a subject. So remember in that example, I touched the big termite. I'm the subject. Get it? Then a predicate. What's that mean? All that means is the stuff you say about the subject. Well, in this case, the predicate is, I touched the big termite on the ground. So subject, predicates. Got it? So verb is touch. Now, remember the predicate is just an English word that says something about the subject. Now, in science, you're going to have some pretty wild-looking sentences. When you use the species name or subspecies name, you might have a subject that says, Coptotermes nevadensis suinae or something. So you get these long, crazy sentences, and then you have prepositional phrases, and then you have to write on passive. But that's all doable. I mean, it might take you a few years, but it's doable. English always has a finite verb. Now, the difference is it can show tense, past, present, future. Get it? Now, we're writing in scientific journals. We're telling the audience, the reader, what we did. That's past. Now, you can talk about future stuff, but that'll probably be somewhere in your discussion or conclusions. But the bulk of that paper, think past. That's where the passive voice comes in. So also, the subjects and the verbs have to agree. So a singular subject, singular verb, plural. And many languages have similar things like that. Okay, now here's the tricky part that foreign speakers, when writing English, they want to always be in the active voice. I put the termites in the test tubes, or I put the termites in a petri dish. It doesn't work that way. And where I is active. Touch is the verb. That's active. Science doesn't work that way. It's different. So it'll say the big termite on the ground was touched. Get it? So when you are doing the insects, I put the insects in the test tube. No. In passive, the insects were inserted into test tubes. So it's a little different. And that's where non-native English speakers have a hard time writing science, is that passive voice. But it kind of gives it away. The way you can tell the passive voice, it's in the past tense. So there's normally an ed, touch versus past. And they also have a helping verb, to be, is, was. Those are helping verbs. So that kind of tips the hand that you're dealing in the passive voice. And I tell you this because the editors of journals, they're looking at that from you guys. And those of you who've tried to write in English journals, you might remember hopefully you don't remember some of my comments. I'm normally very nice. The way I review papers is if the content, I want it new to science. If it's new to science, we can fix all that. All the grammar we can fix. I'm okay with that. What I don't like to see is people repeating other people's work. That's plagiarism. That's not allowed. No, don't do that. Okay. Now, big picture about writing in English. William Shakespeare. Now, you've heard of the Englishman. He was the one that some people claim half the words in the current English language were created by him. And he was from England. So when I say English, there's many forms of English spoken around the world. Trust me. There's the English in America. In fact, English in America is interesting. In California, we speak English different from the South and from the East Coast. Some of you have traveled, and you know this. People in the South go, y'all. What the heck is that? And then people in New England have a nasally sound. People in the Midwest, they say ya, shawting. It's Canadian. So or if you go to the Caribbean, they speak Pidgin English. And some of you, they might speak Pidgin English here. So Pidgin English normally would be English mixed with the local language. So if you go to Hawaii, that's Pidgin you hear. There's sort of English in there. If you go to Jamaica, if you go to New Orleans, they speak a Pidgin English in Scotland, which I find kind of interesting because English started there. They still speak Pidgin there, and I can't understand it. All right, the other thing about William Shakespeare, he lived in the 1600s, they've never found anything written in his own hand. So there's a bit of a controversy if he even existed. Some people think his sister wrote many of his famous works. Who knows? They haven't found his body yet. The last thing I'll mention, gerund. So this is a special verb. So in English, you can go, I walk to school, I walk to school. Or we can take walk and add ing to it and go, walking is fun. Riding a surfboard is dangerous. That walking becomes a noun. So those are the little things in English that non-native speakers forget or makes them nervous. English is very, very flexible. And sometimes things become a verb by putting ing on it can become a noun or a subject. So you have to be, pay attention in those English classes. All right. Now, that's all I'm going to say on English grammar. If you want any more, I'm sure you have English language teachers here at the university. You're going to do no more than watch the soap operas. The soap operas aren't enough. All right. These are all the parts of speech of a paper. So you have a title, you have a list of authors, abstract, keywords, introduction, material and methods, results and discussion, acknowledgments, references cited, tables, and figures. This is universal. They may write it in Russian, they may write it in Arabic, but these parts are all going to be there. Sometimes I have to use Google Translate, but I guarantee you these parts will be in there. So what I'd like to do is go through each of these parts. And hopefully, and it won't take all that long, and hopefully it'll be informative. Let's start with the title. All right. The title is creation. It's a process. It's also the critical first step. You've got something to say to a bunch of people outside of Indonesia, because if you're writing in English, you're not writing for just Indonesian people, are you? You're writing from people all over the world, and many of them understand English very well. So the critical first step, what's the question? You got to have a good question. So let me give you an example. Say you got a new GC mass spec machine in your lab. You don't have the title, hey, I got a new toy in the lab, I'm going to write a paper about it. That's not good enough. You have to remember I showed you that toilet paper roll? You got to take something simple or expensive and relate it to a biological phenomenon. Now, you guys are mostly foresters. There's some entomologists. We have some people here in medicine. Medicine works the same way. In medicine, it's a little more applied because I know you're always drug testing. But why drug test, right? You have to have the question. It has to be important. You just can't go to Google and say, well, this is my GC mass spec machines are good for telling termites apart. I'm sure Google will give you an AI answer, but that won't work. Your thesis advisors are too smart. What you're going to have to do is get into the literature and read a lot of papers and books. Read them online, go to your library. I assume you have good libraries here? You have good libraries here, right? Okay, the problem with the internet is good for new stuff, but not for old stuff. Remember I told you Linnaeus wrote a paper in 1758. You may have to go to the library to find that, just to let you. So you have to read a lot of papers, not just in English. You have to read them in German. You may have to read them. Now you're going to go, I don't have to learn all these languages. No, you don't. You have Google Translate. Normally in foreign papers, they have a second abstract that's in English. Read those. And then, if it's real important to you to come up with your question, and you like that paper, and it says the name of the author, email or her. Hey, I like your paper. Can we chat on Zoom? See, I didn't have Zoom when I was going through training. You do. So you can actually reach these experts and actually talk to them. I know they're hard to get in prima donnas, but that's okay. Most of them are all right. The other thing is you guys have a thesis advisor, don't you? Talk to your advisor. If you're a new student in forestry, go to your advisor and say, I want to do a bachelor thesis or a master's thesis, and hopefully someday maybe a PhD thesis somewhere around here. Talk to your advisor about what are the important questions facing Indonesia. I think that, and they'll know. They're already faculty. They've already published. So those, if you keep those in mind, and faculty can be approachable. I know some students sometimes are intimidated by faculty. Don't be. I was like you, 40 years ago, or I forget, 40, 50 years ago. And how did I end up? I would go, you want my secret to why I became a scientist? I went up to an old professor and told him, it was the guy, I want to work in your lab and learn about insects. I will work for free. I just want to learn science. And he said, yes, he paid me. I was blessed. So sometimes you just have to courage and ask. Okay. Now, I'll give you an example. Let's talk. I have a paper here. It's in California, this is going back 30 years ago. So in California, we have drywood termites. I think you heard about me talk about them earlier. Very important termite pest in Southern California. And it has been for generations. What's the difference in California versus here? People pay a lot of money for their house. They don't want those termites. Remember pest in their head? Drywood termite is a pest. So what do they used to do? Fumigate. Now, I know you don't have fumigation here. I think basically you put a special tarp around the house, take everything out of it that's alive, because it'll die, clean it up, put gas in it for 24 hours, the termites die under that tarp. We did that. Fumigation was first developed in California in the late 1940s. It's still the dominant control method for drywood termites today. They do at least 100,000 fumigations a year in California for drywood termites. And then they do a bunch in Florida and Hawaii, and then for bed bugs, they do a bunch more. So what happened 30 years ago, some people don't like pesticides. I get that. That's fair. They think, I'm going to die from it. Well, if you're not under that tarp, you won't die. But they say, I might get cancer 70 years from now, all that stuff. You guys, I know you hear the same things here. We have. So they developed electrocution. So that was a device that electrocuted termites. High voltage, bzz, zap them. It's like putting your finger in an electric socket. Heck yeah, you'll die. So that was developed because in the US, we didn't have the mechanism to regulate non-chemical methods. In the US, probably here too, you have government agencies that tell you how to use pesticides. We don't have anyone that tells you how to use things that aren't pesticides. So we had electrogun, we have microwaves. Yeah. Think of a microwave oven with the door off, and they put it next to your wall and turn it on. That's non-chemical, so they tried to use that. We had liquid nitrogen. So if you can heat them up, can't you freeze them up? Now they wanted to say this was non-chemical. Liquid nitrogen, that's N2, that's chemical. So they got caught on that one. You can't call that a non-chemical. Nitrogen's on the periodic table. Yeah. We have chemists out here. California does some strange things, trust me. And then we had heat. So heat is like fumigation. You put a tarp and you heat the house up. And I'll talk later about the good and bad about that, but it makes sense. So all those tarps for fumigation, say you got rid of fumigation, you could use the same tarps and put heat in there. Sounds good, right? Well, so these were the big questions being asked in California going back 30 years. We had conferences, the state, the feds, people came in from internationally. This is some of Nanyao Sue was there, Mike Haverty, Barbara Thorne, it's the who's who in the termite world. We brought them all to California and asked them, can we use non-chemical methods for control of drywood termites? And you know what they said? We don't know, because there's no data, no research. It's all in the newspapers. So then the state said, well, wait a minute. If the experts can't agree on it, maybe we should do some research. So that led to this title, Evaluation of 6 Techniques for Control of the Western Drywood Termite. Okay, back then, termites are in a different order. That's why it's Isoptera. In structures. This is how we created that title. It's from talking to a bunch of people, reading a bunch of stuff, and talking to the media. The state paid for it. $300,000 US When was that? 30 years ago? Okay. So that's where the title. Now, list of authors, very important. You have to list everyone on that title page who contributed. You do not leave anyone out. Normally, the responsibility for this is the PI, the laboratory principal, because you guys are young. You guys know. So normally an order is important. The first name is the person who wrote the draft, and the last name is the principal investigator, the professor, and then all those other people in the middle. Please make sure they've done something. And that's where all that comes from. Now, abstract. Now, we're not going to talk about the abstract. The abstract is the last thing you write. So we've got, think about it. You can't write the abstract if you haven't written the rest of the paper. So you got to skip that. That's the last thing. It might be the hardest thing you write, but it's last. Next one. Keywords. Those of you who publish in journals know they ask about keywords. Well, what does that mean? It's a shortcut way of letting readers around the world know what your paper is about. So journals normally don't like more than 5 keywords. They just, and I'll show you something. Of course, we had more than 5. So you might wonder, well, wait, you got more than 5 words there. Dry wood termite is considered one word because it's its common name. You have to have the genus, at least by the Journal of Economic Ant. That's their rules. Journals have rules. Then we mentioned fumigation, non-chemical methods, thermal control, and electrocution. Those are our key words. So you guys get that? So someone in Iceland, if they have a dry wood termite problem, if they keyword the internet, this paper will pop up. I think that's good. It shows we're all connected. Now it gets hard. You got to have an introduction. Now we get to the hard part. Okay. Let's get some stuff in here. I think I have. No, I have to go back here. Let's start. You have to start with a good topic sentence. What a topic sentence is, the first paragraph is critical for when you write a paper. That's the only moment most readers will read. They'll read the abstract, well, they may read the title, the abstract, and the first paragraph. And if you don't know, normally paragraphs are a summation of sentences. So that's why I have that in yellow. The damage caused by wood-destroying insects has an important economic effect. So let's think about that. The reason why, and it was me and Haverty, we were the authors, we put that in there. Why are we writing about it? It's important to the economics of California. It amounts to billions of dollars every year. Notice all these other sentences have at least one word in there that relates to that topic sentence. Look at all of them. You have control, you have repair, you have damage, you have cost. See, everything connects. Scaffolding. See, so you're telling a story. So that topic sentence is your promise to the reader. Everything that follows is going to relate to that. Now you're going to ask me, okay, how do you end it? Well, there's 2 ways you can end an introductory paragraph. You can summarize it, or you can use a transitional sentence to the next paragraph. Get it? So in this paper, remember I promised the damage caused by termites, and then I ended it with dry wood termite damage is most common in Southern California. So we started big picture. Dry wood termites cause a lot of damage. They're mostly in California. Then I go to the next paragraph. The next paragraph tells what's done. You have to say, well, if you've had all these dry wood termites for all these years, what have you done? The fumigation. Remember I showed it? So I have to review the literature on fumigation, lab and field. So that's where you have to, and it's easier with the internet now. Normally for pest control work or it could be medicine too, lab studies come first, then come field. And we all know why we do lab studies, so we don't kill anyone, right? Okay. So the same thing here. So this big paragraph talks everything about fumigation that's been done in the lab. Now, how did I end it? Unfortunately, there's relatively little scientific information on the effectiveness of fumigation from field studies. Get it? So we've done fumigation is important to control dry wood termites. We have a lot of lab. There's no field. Bingo. That's why we picked that topic. So what's that tell you? We're going to do a field study. Get it? All right. One more sentence, a paragraph. We have to normally have 3 or 4 paragraphs in the introduction. So we have to, the readers want alternatives to fumigation. Topic sentence. The public is showing increased interest in non-chemical. Remember we talked about what we do with fumigation? Now we have to talk about people want alternatives. And there is some published work. It's incomplete. We review all the stuff. People have looked at electrogun. Electrogun's been looked at since the 70s, mostly lab. Liquid nitrogen was looked at. Heat, they've all been looked at. You build a big paragraph and put all that in there. The only problem is no field studies. Get it? This is, when you get papers in big journals, it has to be something that's new to the reviewers. The reviewers are smart. They know all about electrogun and microwave fumigation, but they're going to go, where are the field studies? Here they come. So the last paragraph in your introduction kind of tells what we're going to do. Non-chemical methods are currently being marketed to replace fumigation. What we did, we report on the test results of comparing 2 types of fumigation and 4 methods of alternative control. That's our promise to the readers. Got them. Now, for our analysis, we'll get in. See on the bottom, you have to compare it to something. Now here's where science gets, we're getting to the weeds a little bit. A lot of science, particularly what you guys do, you have to use statistics. So this is the part where you might say, we used our statistics with F-tests to compare the treatment effects to look for significance or not. That part. Or you have your hypothesis. You know, you hear that in your research class. Well, and it's always the null hypothesis. So you always say something doesn't work, and then you look for differences and you report on that. That's how it works. Okay. Now we got to get into meats and potatoes. How do we do it? First thing, you got to have insects. I'm an entomologist. If I'm going to test insects, I have to find them. You can't buy them down at 7-Eleven. You got to find them. So my first paragraph is the insects and where I got them. I minor. And believe it or not, I know you guys think of I minor as a structural pest. I got most of mine from grape vineyards in Fresno. Yeah, they get into grape vineyards. It's rare. It's unusual. I happen to know a grape farmer. So many of these stumps, when they're 60, 70 years old, are infested with I minor. But they still produce grapes. I talked this grower who I went to college with. I took out a room full of grape stumps, cut them up, and knocked out I minor. The other thing is firewood. Oops. Here. Firewood. A lot of people will save their fence posts or decks to burn for firewood. It's infested with dry wood termites. So I take all of that. That's my source. We figured a couple 100,000 insects. That's a lot of insects. And for those of you doing insect work, normally you hire undergrads, that's you guys, to count them. And you have to have 3 different students counting them, 10 at a time. And all 3 have to come up with the same number or you have to count them again. That's why we hire undergrads. That's how it works. All right. So all those the first paragraph talks about where we found the insects. The next paragraph, how we process those insects. And then how do we get the insects from here into there? Remember, we promised a structure. So we built a structure to be infested by dry wood termites. We didn't just turn the termites loose in the structure. And it's 20, what's 20 by 20? It's 400 square feet. Where are my metric folks? What's 400 square feet? That's in metric. You guys can do it. 15, 20 cubic meters or something? So we put them in special boards artificially infested. So we had boards that we routed out galleries at different depths and put 75 termites each. Then we put them in this building, and then we would have the treatments. Now, I left a lot of detail out there, and I'm going to show you why. If you build a building, you have to write a paragraph about it. And sometimes the paragraph isn't enough. You need to have a figure or a photo, right? Don't come up there and just give a bunch of gobbledygook like this and think you're going to get it. No, you're going to have a figure, a photo, and I'll tell you later how we have to describe it. And then remember I told you I built a building, or artificial boards. This is the detail on how those boards were dug for, and they were milled. You have to tell all the dimensions in metric. I have to tell the carpenter's name who did it. I know it's picky, but remember when you write a science paper, it has to be reproducible. Someone else has to be able to do it. By the way, I have to tell you, might as well have some fun with this, since I know I'm running out of time. My wife's going to beat me up. That building there, you ever wonder how much it costs to build that? When I wrote the proposal, I said $14,000. One for $14,000 US. You know how much it costs to have it built? $69,000. I'm just telling. So for those of you interested in building buildings, you better bring a lot of money. And that was 30 years ago. That little building right there now probably costs the better part of $1 million. Okay. Here's the tough part. Now remember, we tested methods of control. 6 different methods. How do we compare them? We use statistics. Where are my math faculty? We have any statisticians here? We have mathematicians, but you're not a statistician. You are. Good. So you got one in the back to work with. You're going to need a statistician because you're going to compare levels of efficacy. That normally means a T-test or an F-test. And you're going. If I were you, I would be very nice, give her a lot of chocolate, because she knows all the statistical tests. Do you know R? Oh, you guys are, she knows R. That's who you have to make her a co-author. And then talk to her first. Don't collect, no. She's a nice lady. Call her up, see her, give her chocolates. And tell her what you want to do. She'll tell you how to do it, right? That's what all this stuff is. Oh, I know it looks ugly. You'll understand. She knows. And the better you get the statistician in, the earlier the better. Now the fun part. You have to report what you found and then discuss about it. Now, different journals have different techniques. Sometimes the journals want you to have a separate results section, separate from discussion. Some journals will let you put it together. I personally like putting them together. I don't like writing results and discussion because you're going to need our statistician in the back. And I'll show you later what happens when you start reporting on significant results. Some of you already know this. All right, so we have to capture, remember we have to catch the audience. Oops, I can't see the yellow one. Results and discussion. Remember I told you our standard to compare everything against was sulfurofluoride. It was a fumigant. We start off with talking about how well sulfuride works. And in here, you have to use some fancy terminology. If you say something is significant, you have to give an F-test, degrees of freedom, and what significance level. If you don't put that in there, the editors don't like it. They're going to send it back. Sometimes with the efficacy testing, you have to build a big table. So I know this is an ugly table. Notice sulfurofluoride, these are my 2 fumigants. Then the heat. Liquid nitrogen, we used 3 dosages. Then we had 2 tests for electrocution and microwave. It tells here all the different, this was for artificially infested boards. We had 2 of these tables. The easy test was artificially infested. The hard test was naturally infested. So in the villa, we put real boards in there and told them, okay, here the boards are, you got to kill them. That's a hard test. And then we cut them all up. Very, very precise test. And here, I'll pick on a electric gun. If you say something is significant, you have to give the p-value. So F equals 8, and as long as it's significant above 1, you're good. Degrees of freedom, that just means how many replicates. That's where the statistician comes in handy. She will tell you how many replicates. I know they only want 3. You want 20. I know. Obviously, I've dealt with statisticians. They're fun people. A lot of candy. The other thing, anytime you give a mean, if you say the percentage of something was 50, 60, 70, you have to tell the standard error around the mean. Sometimes people just put a mean number. Don't do that. The editor won't like that. They have to put standard error. That means the variance. So now you're going to go, what's variance? For you out there who are young, some things have very narrow variance. So like normally when you step on the accelerator on a car, the car moves forward, right? That's a narrow variance. There are some things that have big variances, like human lifespan. Big. Humans die when they're a fetus, they die when they're 105. That's a huge variance. And that has consequences to the statistical test that the statistician's going to look at. Be careful. Laboratory studies are easier to find significance in testing. Why? You control everything. Control the environment, give them good food, you sing to them. Field conditions are highly variable, so don't be surprised when you move from the lab to the field that things get difficult. Let's move on. And then now you have to do that. We have to do that with sulfurofluoride, methyl-bromide, heat, 3 levels of liquid nitrogen, 2 levels of electric gun and microwave. So each one gets its own paragraph, maybe 2. And depending upon the journal, you may have to include the discussion with the results. Now you're going to ask me, what's the difference between results and discussion? Results is just the bare bones what you saw. Discussion is where, well, Chow Yang Lee in Malaysia found this and mine was bigger. See that? They're very different. And you may have to, depending upon the journal, they may want you to write it differently, but it's doable. It's doable. Okay, so when you're all done with all that, you got to have a general discussion. One more paragraph. 3 of the 6 methods tested for control of dry wood termites achieved or exceeded 90% efficacy. You have to tell the reader in a summary, could be general discussion or summary, what you found. I know you've gone through 50 pages of your thesis, but you've got to get it narrowed down. Okay, we're almost done. Acknowledgements. Thank everybody. This is, when you publish in the big journals, the world sees it. If you forget someone, and someone who provided, it's not just people who did the work, the idea, or they gave you some equipment, or you consulted with them, thank them. Because when it goes to a world journal, and you don't thank them in writing, they will call you up, guaranteed. Why didn't you put me in there? I gave you money. Please thank the people who gave you money. There have been people out there did all this work, took all this money, and didn't even thank their sponsors. Please don't do that. Okay. Like, remember all those wood samples. Ken Abrahamian, he was a farmer who gave me all those woods. I thanked him. Thank everybody. It's better that way. References. We're getting close to the end. This is where you have to cite all those papers you read. And the more papers you read, the better. There's a format to that. Now, journals vary in their format. Some journals want you to do it alphabetically. A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever. And then there are some, we'll pick on Science Journal, they do it by numbers, which means the first time you mention someone, you put a 1, and then you put them in the back as 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have to find that out early. If you write the wrong format, the editor will tell you and say, do it again. So just warning you. There's a lot of nuances to the formatting. This is always the toughest one for even old people like me. They keep changing the formats. Very hard. Alphabetical, then you have to have it the oldest paper first and then the newer ones. Single author, then 2, then 3, then multiple. That's why it's good to publish your first couple papers, publish with your senior faculty. They know. They've been there. Difference. In the olden days, we would just do like what you see there, the regular alphabetical order. Nowadays, there's this DOI link on the internet. They want those in there. In addition to doing all this, you have to add the DOI links. Please, please, please check those links to make sure they work, because the editors check them. So if you put the wrong link in there and don't check it, they're going to call you or email you and say, no. I just told you about formatting. All right. Table. This is a hard one. Next to the hardest one is this. You always are going to need a table and a figure. Always. I don't care what paper you write. They want to see you in the field holding the flower, holding the kid, whatever. It could be social scientists. They want to see figures and tables. The way tables work is they have to stand alone. What that means is when you look at that table, you can pretty much understand everything in that table without going to the text. A lot of non-native English speakers, they don't put this stuff, see all this stuff on the bottom? They forget that part. And now we're jumping back and forth to the methods part. Don't do that. They don't like that. Same thing with, where was this? Figures. And it could be a photograph. The best way to describe a figure, think of it as a photograph. And you look at it, on the left-hand side, I see this. Tell the reader what you see. And then this one was real busy because we had a whole bunch of sensors in there and drill holes. But I put asterisks in there so that the reader could read that one figure and understand what was going on there. So tables and figures have to stand alone. Got it? Okay. Last but not least, abstract. Hardest one to write because you have to have an abstract. Have to. And it's normally like what? 100 words. You've just written 30 pages. Now you got to say it in 100 words. Hard, but you have to do it. And you have to summarize everything. This one, for young scientists have a hard time. Senior scientists understand this. But if you read a lot of science papers, you kind of get it. So this one, remember I looked at non-chemical and chemical control. So chemical and non-chemical control methods for control of Western drywood termites were evaluated under conditions that simulated field conditions and structure. That's the topic sentence. Then we go on a little bit on the methods. Not a lot. We only have 100 words. And they will ding you on that. Those of you who've given international talks, in international talks, it might be just 50 words. You have to, that's the art and the skill. Because it still has to make sense to the reader, but now you have to scrunch it. And I don't have there's no shortcuts on, even AI can't help you on that. You're just going to have to learn how to do it. All right. Lastly, be happy and have fun. I know the faculty's going, are you kidding? 10 years. No. Think about it. Very few people in the whole world have published in a scientific paper in the world. You guys, those of you who publish are rare. I mean, all the people who publish, I don't even think we have 100,000. We have 8 billion people. Think about it. It's rare. What you write will be cited for generations. I cited Linnaeus. He died in the 1750s. I'm still citing him. And your words matter. Okay, I brought one of these. I know I covered a lot. There are English grammar books. This is one I used in high school. So this is, 50-some years old. High school. Right. So this is a good book, and I think the guy's dead, but maybe his grandson has written. These are good because they break a sentence into pieces. and tells you noun, verb, predicate, and then there's these Venn diagrams? No, not. They'll actually diagram a sentence. And if you can go through that, and I think the earlier versions of this have questions in the back and answers. See, the problem with English books, it's not enough to have a book with questions. You want answers, right? So you know you got it right. So those exist. I know it's involved, and I know some of the scientists are out here going, but it's for you to be a great writer, it's best to go through that exercise. If you go through it, and people have, she's done it. Many of you out there have done it. Chow Yang Lee, you might remember him from Malaysia. He's done it. In fact, he's done it 400 times. You can do it. And Chow Yang speaks what, 5 languages, 6? I don't know how many languages he published in. The written word reaches more people than us speaking, or even the internet, because you reach a broader audience. So enjoy it. You know, it's very, very special. All right. Yeah, pass it around. Pass the paper around.
What the length of the paper looks like and how.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Pass around that journal article. That's the Journal of Economic Ant. That's an international journal that a lot of people around the world publish in. Their papers are my 10 to 20 pages in length. It's kind of expensive to publish in there, but the dean will pay. So. Yeah, well, I'll send Yulia. You already have. I'll send you another. I'll send her. I'll send a PDF. So, and I just thought I would give that. That's my most famous paper, and also infamous. I got sued because of that paper. So, when you get a lot of requests for reprints, that's good. When you get sued, that's kind of good because that tells you a lot of people are reading it. So, it's lawyers. I know there were lawyers out. Yeah, the lawyers came after. I won the lawsuit. Basically, my job at the university, when I was working, when new innovations came into the state of California, they wanted it tested first before they would make money. That's me. So if it works, thumbs up, they make a lot of money. Don't work, thumbs down, they sue me. But I have the state behind me. They save me. Okay, questions? I'm done. I think I'm done. Thank you. Thank you for everybody here. Julie, the dean, you, everybody. Questions?
Okay, thank you, Professor Bernard. Now, everybody's time for QA discussion. Anyone to ask some question? Okay, please mention your name.
30 minutes?
Wait.
Well, we have time.
So, Professor Bernard, you have one question.
Oh, good, because tomorrow I'm on a plane right now.
Okay, please mention your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Thank you for your lecture, Professor Luis. My name is Rosinta. I believe we have met several times before. And my question is, I would like to know what is the most common mistake in writing scientific papers but often overlooked? Because sometimes we are more focused on the fatal mistakes in writing these papers, but we overlook the small details that can also be crucial. And what is your advice for us, young scientists, in order writing this paper? Thank you very much.
Thank you. So what are things to look for when you're writing, particularly for young authors? You have to think big picture. Big. Too often, I'm sorry, I read a lot of papers from Asia. Too often, they get a new toy in the lab and say, hey, look what I found, look what I can do with it. It's more than that. You have to, yeah, it's a new toy, but what can we do with it? I'll give you a good example. And I think you've heard me earlier today. Indonesia is a big place, many, many islands. It would be nice to know the complete biodiversity of plants and animals on all your islands. I think that's thinking big instead of just saying, hey, I just took a seminar on a PCR technique and this is what no, think big. As far as writing, the passive voice. Too often I hear active voice. I. It's not I. Don't use the I. Think passive. The other thing I'll mention, this is not so much the student, maybe your advisor. You have to read deep into the literature, because you'll find out, like termite baits have been around. Theo Evans talked about baits in China going back hundreds of years. So you have to read deep into the literature. And sometimes students want to take a shortcut. Well, I don't know of any baits, so I checked AI. And no, you have to go deeper. Sometimes you have to read the rare books or talk to your retired professors. They know a lot. Does that help?
Yes, thank you very much, sir.
Other questions?
Other question?
Oh, here they come.
Okay, please.
Oh boy.
Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable Prof. Bernard Lewis and wife, welcome to Pontianak. And then Faculty of Law, Faculty of Forestry. Thank you for inviting us in this event. As we know, Indonesian people is rarely using English in daily. So there's so much challenge we're facing. Something I want to ask is how the strategies we need to do so our article accepted in international journal with Scopus indexing. Thank you.
Wow, the international. Okay. I can only tell the things that I'm hearing. There's a movement. It used to be, it was enough to publish in your local country's journals or in the region. But the bar has been raised around the world for people to publish outside their region. And normally when you're publishing outside your region, that's going to mean Mandarin, probably English. That's what happens over here. So, I mean, can I talk about the tenure process?
Please.
Okay. So for you, oh boy. I've heard things in Asia that to advance to tenure and beyond, you have to publish in the English journals. You have to. And you guys probably already know that, those of you who are there. And that's around the world. The same things happen in South America and Europe. They're already doing it. They don't count. Africa is struggling with it. What you've asked for me to do today is a common problem, concern for people around the world. Now you might wonder, well, what happened if you go back 100 or 200 years ago? What happened was the Europeans would send their scientists in here, like a helicopter. They come in and look, write your papers for you, and they go back and publish in their journals. Today is very different. You want control. So that means you got to write in your language, but you're going to have to write in other languages. And I'll tell you why. For you to get tenure, they're going to send your package, whatever it is, out for peer review. It won't be all your friends. You know that. They're going to send it all over the world. So they have to at least know who you are. I know that's tough love stuff to say. Is that fair? What do you think?
Yeah.
All right. I had to go through the same thing. They sent, when I went up for tenure, they sent it to Europe, and well, maybe they didn't send it to Indonesia, but America, Europe, Australia. That's the way the world works now. It's good. It beats driving a bus. Do it. Other questions? Boy, the students are probably.
Okay, I think we have one chance for one question more. Okay, please.
Another question?
Yeah, we have
Oh, here it comes.
at the back.
Another hard one? Oh, boy.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the lesson, Professor Luis. I have one problem writing in English, especially for material and method. You know that now we have to analyze the plagiarism, the percentage of plagiarism. So the most difficult is method, how to describe the method in our paper, so we have less percentage of the similarity. So sometimes I just using this method is referred to the reference,
Yeah,
like,
I know.
but is it good or not? I don't know. Please give me some advice. Thank you.
Right. So did you hear that? She mentioned the term plagiarism. I'm glad you brought that up. Because AI cuts both ways. So when we submit papers, they run them through an AI filter to see if we plagiarized someone else's work or our work. And the problem with a lot of my work, when I did research, I would normally publish it 3 different ways. So maybe the introduction and the results and discussion are different, but the methods are the same, and they see that and they don't like it. So a way around that is, the way I did it was using methods similar to Nanyao Su and Cha Yang. We used a modification, and then just tell what you did, because it's probably a little different. You know, if anything, you did it at a different institution, you had different environmental, used different equipment, just so you can just say, and then that way, it's more work for you. But it gets around those plagiarism things, and you're right. I mean, I have the same problem. Because you'll write for the theoretical basic journals, you write for the applied journals, then you write for the general public. Well, the methods are similar, but you have to change them a little bit. You can do it. Yeah. I've heard those.
Professor Fernand, maybe you have one question more?
Who?
At the back side.
Another one.
Yeah, please, Miss
Here they come.
Sari. Okay.
Oh boy. All kinds of questions.
Okay, Professor Fernand Lewis, I have a question. It's correlate with the previous question. For us, the non-native speakers, is it a must for us to have a native speaker translator so our paper can be accepted in the international journal, especially for the quartile 1 or quartile 2? That is the first question. And the second question is, I do believe you have already many experiences in writing, right? Yeah. So, and I also, what is that? Would you like to share to all of us what is the tips, or maybe you have some tips, how if we already write but we stuck? For example,
stuck.
With many papers, but we stuck to combine them together, and we stuck to make a comprehensive discussion.
Okay.
And we know that for publish a journal, we should make the editors interest to our discussion, right? Not only for the introduction. Yeah, introduction is a critical point, but I do believe the discussion is also the most critical point, right? So do you have some tips for us? For example, we already read many papers, but we stuck to combine them together and make the comprehensive discussion for it. Thank you so much.
Okay, yeah, that's a big question. Let me try and answer it this way. I have had my papers translated in other languages. Let's see, Spanish, Japanese, maybe some other languages. And it's not a one-to-one translation because the cultures are different. But I have read past Indonesian papers that were kind of rough, and I tried to. So what do I mean by kind of rough? Maybe there's something called a run-on sentence. And what that happens is someone gets going and they just keep going and going and going and going, and the whole paragraph's a sentence. You need to break it into parts. So that's, and sometimes they don't even have a capital letter to start a sentence. But those are young. What is that? TRG?
The Tema Research Group.
Yeah. So when I was on sabbatical, I reviewed a bunch of those papers, and I was able to fix some of them because the methods for evaluating termites, like efficacy testing for termites, is similar around the world. You know, we collected them and we put them in petri dishes, we sprayed them. So I was able to, or I would call the author up and say, send me a picture or a video, and I can help you. So that's that part. Now, writer's block. That's a hard one. And I think that was the second part of her question. Sometimes you sit there and you're ready to write and nothing comes out. Okay. Writer's block. I don't have a problem with writer's block, but I'm 73 years old and have been to 50 countries, so I can just keep on going. My problem is cutting down. So the best way around writer's block is you read a lot, you see a lot, talk to people, and you have to go to a quiet place to write. So if you got a bunch of kids and dogs there in the kitchen with you or whatever, that's not quiet. Rent an apartment, go to your office. You need quiet time, and not for an hour or two. You may be days. For me to write a draft, like for some of these papers, I need 1 week, maybe 2. So I might move out, bring all my stuff with me, kiss the wife and kids goodbye. That's when you're younger, because I understand writer's block. But the more you read and the more you see, the more the writer's block won't happen. Does that make sense? And it's okay to write in Indonesian first. That's okay. It's just bear in mind, if you go into an English journal, you're going to have to get some help translating that. I've seen different ways of handling those translations, and I don't want to. It's better if you work with someone shoulder to shoulder, offer them or her authorship, co-authorship. Don't pay for it. Don't do that. Don't do that. Altogether, it's better for you because you're gonna. That's one paper. For you to get tenure, she's gonna need more than one paper, isn't she? You're gonna need more than one paper. I'm just telling you, you're gonna need many more to get the full rank. Dozens and dozens and dozens of papers. So you might as well learn how to do it. Is that fair? Where's the dean? Is the dean jumping at me now? Is the dean okay? Oh, you're okay? You're okay with what I'm saying? She's the boss, right? Yeah, you don't have to use a scientific translator. You can use someone who's studied Shakespeare, if you can find them, or religion. You might have a lot. I see a lot of churches around. There might be someone here who's what are they called? Emissary, not a. Just find someone who is a native English speaker, and then give it to them.
I want to publish a paper, so they asked me to have a certificate that
Certificate of
makes
what?
sure.
Proofreading, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
proofreading.
we have
something
many
like that.
proofreading service with certificate. You can find it.
Is it a must?
What the heck is that?
Proofreading service. Yeah, we have many.
Where do you get that from? Here?
In IPB, ITB, we have many.
Oh,
You
I
can
didn't know.
search in the Google.
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know
There's a
that.
certificate
So that's
for
another
the editors.
procedure.
Yeah. So
Oh, I didn't know that.
I ever published for the key one, and they asked me the certificate proofreading from the native speaker.
Yeah,
And it's expensive actually.
yeah, I know that. I've talked to the Japanese. I
So
know.
that's why
I
I asked, is it a must
know.
to have a proofreading from the native
Yes.
speaker if we
Um,
want to publish?
And then on top of that, if you get the paper accepted, they're called page proof charges. The journal will charge you too. So you're right, publishing in English journals can be additionally expensive compared to what goes on here in Indonesia. But science is becoming more complicated around the world. You're going to have to figure, maybe you can talk to your dean about subsidizing that. Or maybe if you're really good and nice to her, she might give you.
Okay, I hope
That's
that
hard.
is your
I
answer.
do those questions.
Okay,
Am I done?
ladies and gentlemen, I think now is
Wow.
3:37. We close for discussion sessions. Again, thank you very much for Ferrat Luis. Your very interesting and useful knowledge for us as a lecturer and student. Give big applause for Ferrat Luis. Thank you very much.
literature. Yeah. Please give a big applause for our seminar today, everyone. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are about to come to the end of the session. To express our gratitude, we bring a certificate for our speaker. For the session mentioned, please Dr. Insinyur Farah Diba, SUT MSc IPU, to give the certificate. Well, ladies and gentlemen, seminar Pulai Series 17 about writing scientific paper in English has ended. Before we head out, I would like to thank everyone who showed up today and stay still eagerly until the end of the session. Looking forward to see you again in the next exciting agenda. Good afternoon and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.